So just to talk about this while it goes down. So SKT picked this really, obviously, very tanky composition, but this, I think they have a really good feel for the current meta, because as we're going to see in this game, and what I really want to pay attention to, because I haven't seen these games since I casted them, is Jin Air gets this big lead. Obviously, Trundle's a really good pick, but it was a kind of last-second pick as they realized what was happening, and this Corki just isn't going to be doing enough damage because Pilot goes QSS second, and he kind of has to because of the amount of CC. But even so, I don't think Corki does enough damage, period, to deal with the current meta, and Poke just isn't very effective. And I think we're going to see a lot less of these bursty style or poke style compositions. Even though, and this is really typified in this game, because even though Jin Air wins both of these games really hard in the early laning phase, they just can't actually snowball the game because SKT scales too damn hard in the end. So what are you going to do? It's really pretty terrible. So that's why we look at this game. We need to look at this game because this kind of thing is probably what we're going to be seeing around the world a lot more very soon. So lane swap coming in. They don't want to be in lane against Urgot. Understandable. Super annoying until Corki hits 6 and gets rockets where he can actually trade poke. This ward right here is to detect if they're going to lane swap and try and freeze. Okay, people want me to turn up the volume. Alright, give me a second. Okay, turn up the volume on my mic, I assume. There you go. That should be a little bit better. Okay, we don't need to watch this pause. There's Trace. He never smiles. He also refuses to get makeup on. Interesting guy, Trace. True story, I have never seen Trace smile, ever. Okay. Trace is a really good player. That's the thing about Korea, is Korea, even with all the mass exodus of players, Korea is still insanely stacked in the top lane. There are so many good top laners. Yeah, Chaser's really good. People were saying the next great Korean jungler. He's already the best jungler in Korea. He's very, very good. But people underrate him a little bit. He places like almost as many wards as his support. He really is a much more vision and objective control based jungler. So it's not as flashy. But if you watch him play and just check out his vision, and he's been so critical to the poke comps that Jin Air has been running because of their flank wards. It's really, really good. Che should have gone in right there. That was a pretty big mistake. So, do they know? Okay, so they know. Here's what Jin Air knows right here. They just saw Alistair in top on this ward. They know Urgot's here, so they know 100% that there can only be 2 people here. Yeah, it's a really good wall from Faker. This is true to keep them from getting collapsed on, but still, I think Che had an opportunity to flash W right there because look at Chaser and GBM's positioning. This is at least 1 kill. Oh. It was a really good wall from Anivia, though. Maybe because Bengi had that Arctic Assault up, it wouldn't have been a kill, actually. Faker played that really nicely, and they chose the right path to go to right back down into the bot lane. In the end, though, Jin Air is generally a pretty conservative team when it comes to that. They won't take a lot of risks. So instead, they're just going to get some wards down, which is fine, too. So they get something out of it at the very least. So Jin Air in this game, they're going to have an early advantage because obviously they're going to hit this power spike with Corki, and SK Telecom has to have some time to scale because look at this, they have 2 tiers right now, and Faker's going to build tier into Rod of Ages into Seraph's Embrace, so he's going to be hit an insanely strong late game power spike, but Jin Air needs to make the most out of their composition and their burstiness to get some kills. This is a good call from Chaser. Go ahead, take this dragon right now. It's a really good use of recall timings from Jin Air. And the best part about this for Jin Air is Corki can remain topside in this situation. So it was smart of SKT to swap Urgot up here at this time because they want Urgot versus Corki early on. Corki's still not level 6. And they want to make plays and just try and poke Corki out of lane to delay his power spike, right? That's the idea here. So the early lane swap was advantageous for Jin Air. And now they have this in the bottom lane going on. So they thought that it would have been even better if Corki could just sit up here and solo lane farm against Hecarim, but SKT switches the Hecarim down to the bottom side. So SKT makes the right call here. And Bengi's positioning is super good because he's threatening Corki if he's up here solo, and because Annie was down on the bottom side. Yeah, good. I was about to where's this ward? Bengi wards that. He should have warded that first, actually. So you could see if Corki was there. Because there was a slight danger in doing that. So Jin Air is in a pretty good position right now because Hecarim needs Trinity Force, right? And he's fallen behind. So that delays. If he gets the Trinity Force, you can see he's not even building it. He's going to build Shroud into Trinity Force. So SKT, they're really all ending on the late game right here. Also, Bang not level 6 yet. Pilot is. Now he's 6. This is a good gank. It's very well played. But Martin's TP just came off cooldown, so he can get back into lane. Good takeaway from Chaser. That crab's really important if they want to continue to make plays on the bottom side. You actually see that was a really good knockback onto Chaser. You see Hecarim just like pop him back. So he at least got the flash out of Chaser that way.
That's one thing that Trace does really well, is that he chips towers. Talk about Jin Air as a team. They're a team that loves to play with a lot of lane pressure and slowly grind down your towers for a big advantage. Very slowly. Yeah, very slowly, but of course with Morgana as well, the outer ring in the laning phase. And we've seen many Jin Air games that kind of go where we have all three of those outers falling in favor of Jin Air at approximately the same time due to crossing that pressure. Trace also knows when the back.
This is good by Jin Air. They need to keep the turret pressure on really heavily right now. They have that opportunity. And look at this. They're coming in. This is really good. So Anivia obviously has that excellent wave clear. So just using the recall timing, this is so good from Jin Air. So this makes it even harder for Faker to farm up his tier because he has to walk really far ahead in lane now. And it's very dangerous. So they're taking control over the top side around Urgot. I don't know if they should do that. I think maybe that bottom side's a little bit more valuable at the moment in terms of deep warding. Because Pilot still has the pressure advantage just because he can clear waves with his rockets so easily. Jin Air's early game has been incredibly tight recently. It's not really that SKT is doing much wrong either. They're just a point of weakness where they can be dove and exploited due to their comp and their itemization. Oh, Bengi took blue. Faker has no mana. That's why Faker had to recall right there, actually, so that ended up being pretty impactful. It's a good kill.
Jin Air getting everything they want in this early game. GBM also had that lane pushed up without the tower, so he was on the roam just to back up in case they needed it. They had the good wards in the enemy jungle, know that there wasn't any chance of responding, and Jin Air. It's going to be another turret too.
It was a really safe kill from Jin Air. They had the wave pressure, they had all the wards, and they had the mid tower down. Making a few mistakes right there. If they hadn't failed that blue buff transfer, maybe they wouldn't have lost mid. But that's snowballing the game really nicely for Jin Air. Another turret. So now you want to... Now you really want to push this bottom side. Drag it up in 30 seconds. So if Jin Air plays this out right, that was really good timing for the top kill. And now you can go and take control over bottom side. They should have enough time to get this. Good timing from SKT on the Scuttler. But you can't really do anything against Rek'Sai. Like, those kind of baits just aren't going to work because of Tremor Sense. Unless you stay perfectly still. See, you know, Rek'Sai is like a Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park.
good wave clear on this team too. So as long as they play where Faker isn't,
Not sure. This is a bit of
towers is
weirdness.
already back up to the top.
Chaser goes to Raptor buff right now,
Not going to be too
and then up to Krugs.
relatively low amount of tank.
They didn't have ults, is the thing. They used Lissandra ult, so Jin Air was probably a little bit scared about possibly being taken out at that dragon. But I think they should have gone for it.
Good wave clear on this team too.
Because of they see this wave coming into the top side, right? But Trundle has TP, so he can take Dragon. And look, they chunked out Marin right there. Marin has TP, though, so that's not the biggest deal in the world.
He's going to get ulted.
He's going to have to ult away himself. Gets ulted by GBM, but he's going to escape.
But with this kind of pressure,
Dragon is up.
they should at least try drag.
Nivea really the only good wave.
Faker just doesn't have items. That's the thing. He's not going to be doing damage. Look how much little damage he does to that minion wave. It takes him like 5 seconds to clear it out. So I think you at least try Dragon right there, even though there is a Scuttle Crab and you don't have the Lissandra ult. But we'll see how it plays out. Maybe Jin Air made the right call. Because they have pressure top now, so they can actually pressure top lane and then be patient and wait for Lissandra ult to come up again. So there are a couple different ways they could do it.
Why not? But that's the push. It has begun. He's even got Ninja having to.
And there's no way SKT can do it. So that's not as big of a deal.
Marin, he actually got stuck. Oh man, look at the damage. Trace goes ahead and ults, but he can't quite finish him off.
Wow, but he will force him back right there. And that means that Jin Air may be able just to go for it. Actually, Chaser's going to
Flash
finish it.
knockup. The damage from Rek'Sai isn't
No, he
enough.
canceled his auto.
Yeah, he checks his auto right there. That's really sad, actually.
Oh, that's a heartbreaker.
It's a lucky break for Marin, though. SKT, they need these lucky
That's
breaks
brutal.
right now.
It was a really nice gank.
Well,
They're gonna lose the turret either way. Well, they're gonna lose one day.
SKT also going to get the dragon as a result of that gang. They really needed.
What the hell? Okay, Jin Air. How did they let them set up for that? So, lane is pushed up, GBM is here. They have a ward right here. So they see them walking up.
That's a heartbreaker.
It's a lucky break for Marin, though. SKT, they need these lucky breaks right now.
So Marin is back, and they try and get this turret. But Trace is still full HP. He has enough mana. So they saw them walking up, so they know this is going on. But they also know Faker is here. This is maybe a 4v4. No mid laner there. There's... Even if Marin TP's in, I mean, Trace can TP in too. So right now it's a 3v3, and then there would be teleports coming in. You have Lissandra with Abyssal, and there's no MR. No MR. So I think... Because if they'd be coming from two different sides, and they have enough hard CC, I don't think it's possible for Bengi to get a good ult off here. And I think that even as tanky as all these people are, actually, I mean, Bang really isn't tanky yet, except for when he uses his ult. I'm pretty sure that Jin Air wins this engage.
SKT also going to get the dragon as a result of that gang. They really needed to kill Marin right there.
Okay, here's the TP.
Fight.
Yep, that's right. Shay comes in. He's going to drop the timbers right in the middle of the fight. Pilot has to be very careful, but position reverser, Bang going to die right afterwards. He had to use it on Shay. So Dragon.
Okay, so that's really good from Jin Air. That's a good reaction to what's going on.
About that one.
They made the right call. Mar should not have TP'd it right there. That's just horrible.
He's going to ult over the wall, but right in his
Chaser, good Void Rush. That's really good team play from Jin Air to just know where to go to box him in. He has no escape routes.
add on some damage as well. Misses with the first rocket. The second one, not even needed. Chaser. There we go. That time the auto did.
Well, they did end up getting him in the end. Marin was overcommitting right there. You don't have to TP
That's a good call from Jin Air.
the dragon. Don't give
Still missed the dragon though, but they have a pretty good gold lead.
pretty much able to get out except for Bang. Jay only hits one actually. right there.
Bengi airballed his ult.
Again, but Bang dies immediately. She's not tanky yet. Can't stop that.
Wouldn't really have mattered even if he hit it though.
There they have it.
That's the thing, is it didn't matter.
Can't stop that right there. They're
Because who does he hit right there? If he hits Che, it doesn't do anything. He should have aimed it down here to hit Pilot and Trace. That way it does something.
Sides already locked up, so good choice of the Void Rush from Chaser to cut off any possible exit. Marin could evade. Marin uses his ult once again.
I bet Marin was really sad to see Rek'Sai right there.
This might eventually take it down right here. No escape. Meanwhile, still action going down to the bottom lane.
Yeah, Wolf might be in a little bit of trouble. There's a stun from the Annie-W. Wolf so tanky, though. With that Alistar ultimate pop, you know, I gotta say, Pilot played that Dragon fight out really well, too. Came up, did some damage.
Alright, you want me to move my webcam?
Urgot ultimate target ended up being Shay.
There you go.
So Pilot actually played that very safely. He's 2-0-1, has that switch for him very quickly.
And Ravenous Hydra now down to Trace. Also, he's going to take the red buff too. Oh man, Trace is just going nuts this game.
No kidding.
Sacrificing actually a lot of CS for that, but he's already in the lead. He really just wants to punish Marin repeatedly.
He is about to find Marin in the top lane if Marin back on according to the minimap.
Wow, this is a nightmare for Marin. It can't really get much worse.
This is a really good situation for Jin Air right now. Even though they lost that Dragon, they still have a substantial lead. And SKT is still trying to scale. That's a good ult. Good series of ults.
Trying to get the stuns off Pilot very low.
Bang's ult was interrupted though, so he didn't swap.
Still alive. He's gonna live, and Shay picks up the kill on Bengi. How in the world did Corki make it through that? They might still.
Let's go back, because that looked okay at first.
That Void Rush in order to help him out. GPM.
So it's a 3v2, but Chaser's there. They don't have any wards, so there's a strong possibility the Chaser could be there. So SKT makes a bit of a risky play. Wolf gets the pull, and then there's the ult coming in. Oh man, Che got the Tibbers down perfectly in an extremely tiny window. I think he was hit by Pulv. It's hard to tell. Was he hit by Pulv? He was. He was stunned right there. Oh man, that is such a small window, because this actually cancels Bang's ult right here. Which probably turned out to be a good thing, actually, for SKT. Wow. That's ridiculous that he lived through that. Could have been a 1-for-1. Because the thing about the Urgot ult is he still gets the defensive stats even if he starts the channel. So it doesn't really matter if you stun him after he starts it. And you probably don't want to layer your CC like that either. That's so sick from Trace. That's just a great outplay.
Wow, Trace with the huge plays to escape, and the stone cold expression on his face says,
I have never seen Trace smile, Noah.
I've never seen his face move. Man, he can move in game.
That's really good.
Now, so they're waiting for Baker to stack up. What can he do? They're already down 4K gold. Yes, they have the late game advantage, but Jin Air is really putting the screws to them in this game.
Kidding. Well, Jin Air just pulling this out absolutely beautiful. The Trundle last pick has been fantastic. Who knew Trace was this amazing Trundle player as well, too, right?
I really like the way they played this out strategically as well, Jin Air.
But Jin Air just like continues to roll with these advantages. And see, okay, so why we're reviewing this one again is because it's good for me to review games because I can pause them, obviously. And, you know, on cast, you're trying to be entertaining while watching the game and trying to dissect it in real time. But since I know what happens pretty much, my big question for coming into this series is about the current meta in 5.5 because I want to know exactly how SKT was able to recover from this because you wouldn't think that they would be able to at this point, but that's the power of this stacking. And I had so many questions coming in, like, how during this game I was like, well, how is Faker going to get? I mean, he went tier rod. I mean, he gets an 18-minute rod. He still only has one stack right now. So is the tank meta powerful enough to overcome this like 4.5k deficit that they have? Because this game is, I think this series in particular is so important for the current meta because it shows that this burst and what has been going on with Lissandra, Corki, Annie just may not be viable anymore. And if that's the case, SKT has a much better read on the current meta. I mean, this is definitely the most important game that happened in the past week because it showed us something very different. Also, for those of you asking if they should have invaded blue buff more, probably, but it didn't matter because Bengi was taking all the blues this game anyway. Kappa. The Frozen Heart buy is interesting. The question is, how does Jin Air lose this next dragon? Because they shouldn't. Marn can't do any damage yet. Trace is really scary. This is so good for Jin Air. Look at this. They have the bot pressure. They get the tower down. There's a wave going into the bottom side at 30 seconds. Okay, Chaser's recalling. Doesn't matter. He has ult. Oh, decides not to recall. They have mid and bot tier 1 down. How do you lose this dragon? Okay, well, it's a shit recall timing from Corki. He got QSS for this fight. Alright, it's not the worst thing in the world. They still have a huge gold advantage. They're still in this big power spike right now. They have pressure in top. Oh, Faker. So good. That was so good. So, right here, SKT. The question is, does Pilot need QSS for this fight? Because otherwise he shouldn't have recalled. So Faker pushes this wave up. GBM just gets back to lane, right? Oh no, he was there the whole time. What the hell? What's GBM doing? He's so scared right now. GBM doesn't have to play this scared. He should just be walking forward and clearing that wave. See, they had a ward here, so they know he had vision, and they know there's no wards here from SKT because it's a pink. So he should have been pushing this much more aggressively and actually trying to deal with Faker, because that causes a lot of problems in just a second. But Faker is so good. Like, look at this. They had a ward here, so they know they're coming in, and they saw GBM on the wave, so they know that they're split. So he just walls this, and look at this. He waits till Corki walks up to wall off Corki. That's huge. Like, Jin Air isn't even necessarily playing this badly. It's just that Faker's walls are so good. And what do you do? I suppose Che could have flash ulted Faker right now. He's stuck behind the wall. But Pilot mispositions. How do you even...
How many targets are there for an Erdon? You really don't want anybody except Pilot in the middle of your team.
SKT, wall, this dragon.
Look at that, too. They chain the CC so well. Wolf combos him. The Pilot can't see him from the brush. He probably should have just Valked immediately. So Pilot's misplay here was not Valking as soon as the wall cut him off. Chaser should be able to tunnel that wall, too. What is he doing? This is bad. Okay, this is what happened. So, as soon as Pilot gets cut off, Chase starts to walk around this way. He could have flash ulted right here, or Chaser could have gone under with tunnel in order to knock up. Yeah, this is a big misplay from Jin Air. It was a good wall from Faker, but he should have been punished for walking up. I think they were afraid that Bengi might ult them in this choke. But I think you have to just pull the trigger right there. Because Pilot getting chunked out prevents them from dealing with this dragon.
Teleport coming in for Trace. Dragon taken by SK Telecom. And can they turn it around? Whoa, nice as well, the ultimate Trace.
Okay, well QSS did something, but that he shouldn't have been in the position to use QSS in the first place. And they just collapsed on the choke. It's a good turnaround from SKT, but Jin Air played like pussies. You have to go for that. You know that they're not fully scaled yet. I mean, Faker has like a tier and a 1-stack rod. You gotta fuck him up.
SK Telecom really abused that fact, even though he had the QSS. For the Sejuani ult, he didn't do much poke in that fight, so SK Telecom winning the poke wars. And at that point, Trace probably should have just kept trying to split push on the top side instead of coming down into that fight.
This is really bad. Maybe Chaser's tunnel is on cooldown. I'm not going to go back and check. But leaving Pilot like that is terrible.
They can do in order to stop it right here. So Pilot goes down to about a quarter HP. Now the TP comes in, but this is not a fight that they really want. Great stun on the Chaser, and then the follow-up ult also very good. Another wall will come in on Trace, and Jin Air a little bit.
That's another really good wall, though.
How or when they want
But the thing is, yeah, Pilot shouldn't have been there, but Faker also reacted to that perfectly. The wall was perfect. The stun, chaining it into the headbutt pull was perfect. So good. Yeah, you're right. Chaser did have flash. He could have flashed the wall. He could have flashed the wall and then jumped on him because GBM was there. He was coming in for, and he has a lot of damage right now. And he had Zonia. Did he have Zonias for that fight? I think he did. He's doing really well. So they just needed to pull the trigger right there and start killing them. They let Faker get away with a lot. Thing is, even if Faker goes down, he's getting pretty tanky, and he has his egg. So there was some follow-up to that from SKT, but I still think you have to abuse your power spike if you're Jin Air. You have to have confidence that you're stronger right now. Who knows how it would have played out in the end, but I think if you're Jin Air, 100% you have to go for that fight. Otherwise, you're just going to get outscaled, which is what happens. They're still in a pretty good position here. It's not the end of the world that they didn't go for that. They only lost one member, but they... Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Pilot may not be familiar with Anivia's ranges because he has never played in a meta where Anivia was good. He's too new. Only Season 2 players would know that, really, in competitive.
Very carefully, you can always ult away. He doesn't need to do it.
force the ult. It's a low cooldown ultimate, though.
Yeah.
Force the ult without losing his own. And he does have to back off. Of course, that's sustained, especially with the Hydra. Trace
Oh,
is
here it
coming.
comes. Where's the cone? There it is. Traps him. And Marin, he's going to have to use
Martin can't buy home guard this game. That's not what he's looking for. He needs to just survive this Trundle who got super far ahead. His job is to counteract split pushing. His job is not to blow up the backline right now. They don't even have to blow up the backline because they're so tanky. That's the thing, is you don't... It's obviously home guard on Hecarim is really good, but he doesn't need that right now. He just has to counteract split push pressure and try and survive long enough for SKT to outscale. Because it really doesn't matter if he gets into the backline and blows up Corki, because Corki isn't going to do any damage. Corki bought QSS second. Corki being alive or dead is not particularly relevant. Yeah, I agree that Blade would have been a better build on Trundle right here, but it's not like Hydra is terrible. I don't really agree with what Faker does right here. There's a ward. He knew they were in there, and he still walks up and has to burn Flash. That's kind of dumb. There's no need to walk into lane right there and just use Flash. So bad to use Tibbers right there. You should just Q-stun. Nothing GBM could do because they misplayed it. They could have gotten out of that. They could have gotten out of that one and then still pressured top tier 2. So they could have traded tier 2 for tier 1 and still gotten out if they, I think if they had held on to Tibbers. GBM's positioning was also super awkward. But in spite of all those wards, Jin Air really overcommitted to that side. SKT's catching up too. That's actually scary.
So why not just hold on to the Tibbers just in case you need it later on that retreat? I think that was a bit of a misplay with the Annie.
You know, I think he thought Pilot, Pilot was coming in. I think he thought if he got it, maybe it would have gained. He didn't really understand that there were so many SKT players.
Also, this is so hard for Pilot now because he has Cutlass, but he's like, they all have Frozen Heart. So he needs both Blade and Last Whisper. He's not going to do damage until he gets both of those items.
So this is SKT. Their job is to drag out team fights as long as possible, survive the burst, and just deal very consistent.
At this point, I don't think Jin Air even really has a possibility of winning anymore. That was a really good play on the Dragon after they chased out.
Or have they? Huge stun over the wall. Faker in a lot of trouble. Goes down. Pops that passive anyway. Wolf pushing Pilot back out. Uses the QSS. They get the kill on Faker anyway. Here comes Bengi to try to break up the fight a bit. GBM has to disengage. Has to use that Zonius. Wolf trying to get there for big pulverize. He gets it. Big knockup now onto Jin Air. Chaser. They're trying to turn it around. Pilot still with a good amount of health.
That was a good engage by Jin Air. Oh, he hit Raptors with the Prey Seeker, otherwise Wolf would have died.
Nearly
Okay, let's take a look at that again. Let's talk about what's going on.
Still with a good amount of PM. Huge stun over the wall. That's 3-1 now, so SKT.
This is a good call from Jin Air. So you go up the mid, and then SK Telecom makes a mistake.
Telecom really doing good.
So they're pushed up here. So they already Jin Air's playing this really nicely in the 4-1. They know that Bang is in the bottom lane. So this is actually quite dangerous for SKT to walk where they're walking because the wave is coming up. And realistically, they should probably... Oh, they are doing the right thing. They were going to walk through this point. This is a really good catch from Jin Air then, because SKT isn't necessarily playing this poorly, and they get caught by a scrying orb. And then this is where Jin Air pulls the trigger. Why didn't they do this before? If they had done this at the other Dragon fight, I think they win that fight. We'll never know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they do. And then, so this is what they should have done earlier. I think they realized that they were playing too cowardly before. And now they want to really go on in this one, because they have 4 right here, and there's only 3 of them here. So they know they have a numbers advantage, and Trace has pressure advantage, so he's able to push this up and then walk faster. He's going to end up... He's not going to TP. He forces Marin's TP, actually. So they get the drop right there. Good Tibbers. Great chaining of Corki abilities. Look at that. Beautiful. Who gets ulted? I think Faker got Lissandra ulted. That was a little bit overkill. But look at all the crowd control they have right here. Bang's walking up. This is a TP from Marin onto the mid lane turret. Pilot counters the ults from Sejuani immediately with the QSS, so Wolf punts him out. I think Marin should have gone after Pilot instead, because QSS was already down. And Bengi... Yeah, because the thing is, Pilot gets 1 million free autos because of that. And they know Bang is coming up from the bottom side too. So because Wolf was already ulting and Bengi's pretty tanky, I think if you just go after Pilot right here, you have to trust that Bang's going to come up and try and be able to clean some of this up. Instead, it really allows them to come back, and Pilot gets really good positioning as a result. Because if you knock him back, maybe he can't Valk that wall. Or if Marin walks forward and he Valks the wall and avoids the Hecarim E, then he can just ult right back in here. He can ult, Hecarim can ult over the wall. So Marin picked the wrong target. Man, Pilot got a lot of free autos. I think Marin could have played that better. You made better use of his ult and his E. It was a good engage from Jin Air, though. Because that wasn't even that risky of a move by SKT. Jin Air had to use a ton of summoners to get that engage off. Okay. So, probably that could have gone the same way for Jin Air at that earlier fight. But Jin Air at least takes the edge now, and they should get this tier 2 in mid lane. I don't remember if they do. Yeah, they will.
Catch there from Jin Air, getting into that choke and bang. Wasn't there at the start of the team fight, so Jin Air does take good team fight win, but they don't increase their goal score really as a result. And there's that big wave that only Che is going to be getting in top.
SKT was faced with a really hard decision right there because they take Dragon and then they're pushed back. So
They got the necessary burst.
they basically were guaranteed to lose that tier 2, but in retrospect they should have just lost it and then not all died. Just recalled right at the pit.
Oh, they trap Pilot. That QSS. That QSS is coming so handy for him this game. He's used it every fight and it's saved his life nearly every time.
Arguably, though, he should be a little bit more careful right there. He wasn't going to save that turret. So at the end of the day, we have a nearly even trade.
But that's a good response from SKT just to revive and push up the mid lane. This game, both teams are making good decisions this game. Except for that one by Jin Air. And that was a conservative decision not to engage. Oof.
KT has set up some nice big attempts this game. Violet has been using that scrying or behind pretty much everyone.
Marin getting chased away. Yeah.
Trace is really fast as well on that first domain, so continue trading with Marin even when Marin is trying to use his Q.
That's such a fast cooldown ultimate on Tormen's Run. He's going to have them all the time. He does. Recall. Baron tapped by SK Telecom.
We should see them with Trevor Sense.
Yeah, this seems a bit bold. Okay, they will back
It was a
away.
good try. And they have the tankiness that it doesn't really matter if they go ahead and poke in there. They're not going to take too much damage from it, so maybe forget it.
You're not going to commit without the
SKT is playing this really well. You want to at least threaten right now and put some pressure on. Maybe you scare them and you get a port out
They've dodged
of Trace.
so now they have a chance to really use this tankiness and this late game power to close this one out.
Baron's like, this is a team bomb that just tried to kill me. What's going on? It's on Anivia. We're not even in there. Anivia is like 6 platinum gamers to a dozen Warlock. We're there.
Those 3 dragons, very worrisome for Jin Air. Really needed to play around those dragons a little bit more actively and see if they can take it. But it's hard against this level of tankiness and also against Anivia who can play the choke so well with that Arctic Storm.
I mean, Jin Air really just needs to find these amazing shows. Oh, this is happening again, huh? Battle over the Rift Sculler. Becky's going to come down and be able to take that one. SKT getting that crucial Rift Sculler.
Yes. Still no good engagement for Che. He doesn't have one. Righteous Authority.
He does have flash up though, so in the next fight he'll be able to get it. Wow, Princess. Accident flash up.
Trace does random.
We're just waiting for something to happen right now.
Pilot actually delayed his way through the blast whisper. Massive.
But SKT is in a very good position. They're extremely tanky right now. They have a Leandries. Faker's build is just for that sustained damage and the tankiness. He's just going to sit there with a giant mana pool and damage over time with Leandries. And this team is perfectly built for sustained team fighting. It's really good by SKT.
They had a board late.
And there's still no Blade. So what is Jin Air going to do? They can't burst somebody. And they also are going to be a lot less effective because they don't have a Blade on Trundle and they don't have a Blade on Pilot. There's almost nothing they can do. Jin Air can do. They're going to lose
1 second
a long team fight.
now. And SKT in a good position
I don't even think Jin Air could have done anything right there.
SK Telecom suddenly a big, big threat objective-wise.
Now they can get into dicey situations with Great Dragon in favor of Baron. It's really dangerous for Jin Air. Another game where Jin Air blasts out of the gates, falters down the stretch. Part of that's just due to the team compositions that they've selected. Again, against GE, they didn't have their team comp to really hang in the late game, and I think we're in a similar position here.
I think Jin Air has to go for this Baron. I mean, they lose the game because of this Baron, but what are you going to do, really? They just... Look how slow they are at doing Baron because they don't have Blade on Corki. I mean, SKT is really strung out right now, but that's a good ult. They bring back Trace immediately. So Jin Air just can't do much of anything at all. That's such a good wall, too. There's no follow-up on GBM's ultimate. It's possible. Bang is taking so much Baron damage, though. It's such... Yeah. Wolf's Alistar play this game has been really good. But I think Jin Air had to go for a Desperation Baron. Otherwise, they were just straight up going to lose this. There was no chance of them winning team fights anymore. We don't have to watch the rest of this VOD, but when we talk about why SKT was... Why this is such an important game for the meta is because the power spike window that you had in previous patches where you could use Corki has been shortened substantially. When we talk about Cinderhulk and how effective it is in these tanky, very tanky compositions, it just... Your window gets substantially shortened because the tankiness comes faster, and because the Cinderhulk gives you that multiplier on bonus HP, it just scales out of control. So the amount of time you used to have to abuse with burst and poke has been shortened by a lot. And so, in a way, even though we did see SKT down, and yes, Jin Air made some mistakes and they should have played aggressively, because that timing window has been shortened so much, it's so risky. Like, you have to pull the trigger every time. If you're playing a composition like the one we see from Jin Air, with all this burst and poke, if you don't play it perfectly, you can't snowball the game any longer, because the snowballing from Cinderhulk is so good. And to a certain degree, it doesn't even really matter if you lose lane. SKT was able to lose lane and then come back in this game and just out team fight the opposition. So I think if you're not super aggressive with how you play this style of composition, and that means you all in at every opportunity, and your play around those objectives and those all-ins is flawless, it's so hard to win. Because all SKT has to do is sit back, wait for Rod and Seraphs and their tiers to fully stack up, and then you win the game. And like Bengi, because he has Cinderhulk and Chaser doesn't, it's going to magnify all of his HP. Yeah, so this is the it's just multiplying everything. So what do if you're Jin Air? That's why these kind of compositions, Trundle's fine, but this, I'm not sure how well this is going to work. Yes, it will still work if you play it really aggressively, but obviously there's danger to that too, because if you get caught out in one bad dive and you give these champions a bunch of kills, well, then you're screwed. Then the Cinderhulk advantage is going to multiply even further. So this is why this is going to change the meta. This is now too risky. There is a level of reward to it, and yes, Jin Air played a couple fights badly, but they didn't need... What? That one dragon fight where they didn't pull the trigger? It wasn't even a disaster for them at all. Pilot got caught out, yeah, but you shouldn't just like lose the game because your AD gets chunked. This is too risky now. And this is why this is a much better option in the current meta. People are like, so the bursty style of play is only for China? Well, no. I mean, China's going to run into this too. They're going to run into the same problems that Jin Air is running. This is so good right now. Cinderhulk is very, very good. Maybe Chaser should have gone Cinderhulk this game. That may have actually changed a lot about this, because that way Jin Air, it would have bought Jin Air more time, at the very least. But even then, I think Corky Lysandra, late game, you're not going to be doing anything against this Anivia. This Anivia is terrifying right now. Look at this. What? That's ridiculous. You can't kill this. You can't kill Anivia, and he's going to bisect your team. SKT, I think, has this is the best use of the meta in 5.5 that we've seen. Is what SKT does these two games. They're really ahead of the curve, and that's why this is so interesting. This is probably going to see a lot less use. This kind of stuff is going to see a lot more use. Yeah, Vayne is fine against these tanks as long as you have protection. When we looked at the C9 CLG, CLG had a fine comp to run Vayne in. It's okay. The question too is Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw should be making a return. So I think you have a couple of different ways to deal with this. You either run a hyper carry, or you try and play late, like a late game Caitlyn, if you can survive with Caitlyn for that long, or you go Kog or Vayne or maybe Tristana. I don't know how pro players feel about Tristana's lane matchups these days. We may see Zilean come back as a result. Of course, Zilean, his double bomb gives you that AoE stun right now, and he has a revive. I mean, think about this. You revive, like, Hecarim? That's disgusting. Or you revive, you revive Hecarim? What are you going to do against that? Zilean should be really strong. Yeah, Jinx is fine too, but Jinx is hard to position right. She's kind of scary, because she doesn't have escapes, and at least Kog'Maw has better range. Kog is probably the best. And Kog can check brushes. Yeah, maybe Shyvana. Possible. Shyvana had some changes recently. Yeah, the Zilean stun is difficult to land, but if you land it, it's disgusting. You should have some trust that some of these pro players are going to learn how to use it. I don't like York. York's too easily kited. But maybe. Ryze would be strong. And they buffed Ryze, so maybe he can actually do well again in lane. Ryze would be really strong. But yeah, this is... People really underestimated, I think, how much Cinderhulk was going to change this. I saw that patch and I was like, holy shit, it's going to change the entire game. Because these tank junglers being able to clear, there's almost no downside to running a tank jungler anymore. And then that's going to affect the AD carry pick as well. Burst just doesn't work. I mean, it does work, but it's too... I don't think it's consistent enough is the thing. I think it requires way too much. If you're a really good team, you can still snowball off of this. But look how well Jin Air did in the early game. They did really well, actually. And they were making good plays. If you, as a team, if you make one misplay, and that misplay is you don't like aggressively fight one dragon, and you lose the game because of that, that's stupid. And then this is not a good comp anymore. Udyr's so good because he can peel really well. He can peel really well. Yeah, Soraka might come back too. That's a good point. It's an interesting meta. I think they do need to nerf Cinderhulk just a little bit, because it's too dominant right now, as we see from this game. It shouldn't be able to dominate this hard. And that way we can get a good mix of like Lee Sin and these tank junglers. But this game was really well played by SKT. Okay, I'm gonna take like a 5-minute break, everybody, and then I will be back to do game 2 of this.